Welcome to Evaluating Research Sources for Richland College Speech Courses. During this course, you will research for two formal speeches, an informative speech and a persuasive speech. During the course of this tutorial, we will cover an introduction to research, internet research, evaluating website quality, library research, and citing your sources. To begin, what is research? Research is an investigation of written materials to help you establish an understanding of your topic and to provide evidence for the point or points you're speaking about. You may be asking, why do we need research? Well, there are many reasons. First, it is an essential aspect of academic work. Research helps you to develop your critical thinking processes. As a student, you've yet to establish credentials to speak authoritatively on a topic. But research will help you to add credibility to what you have to say. Let's talk a little bit about internet research. Why do we typically think of the internet when it comes to research? Probably because it's very easy. While it may be easy to do, internet research is not always college level. Evaluating the quality of a website involves looking at 4 different elements: credibility, objectivity, currency, and relevance. Over the next few slides, we're going to look at a few websites. Note that these websites may contain copyrighted material and they're only used for educational purposes. Credibility is the first criteria you should use when determining website quality. When we say credibility, we're referring to the author's knowledge, authority, and trustworthiness. Is the author credentialed, or do they have the qualifications necessary to write on the subject matter that you're looking at? If it's an organization, is that organization reputable? Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Let's start with an oldie but a goodie, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a free internet encyclopedia containing millions of articles. Volunteers worldwide will collaboratively add to each one of these articles. Basically, anyone who can access the site can edit most of the articles, which obviously leads to some questions about accuracy and who's actually writing the article. The ultimate verdict of Wikipedia is that it's not a credible source of information. Why not? Well, while it's fine for personal use, and in fact encouraged to use for your own personal use, it's simply not a college-level resource. In fact, Wikipedia themselves note that it should not be used academically. They insist that you do your research properly and wisely by remembering that any encyclopedia may be a starting point for research, but it's not an ending point. Therefore, it's fine to use Wikipedia to gain background information, but you wouldn't want to use Wikipedia, or really any encyclopedia, to cite your actual sources in the speech. Have you ever noticed those little numbers throughout Wikipedia's articles? Well, those little notes are there because Wikipedia is not a primary source of information, meaning they didn't come up with the information themselves. They found the information somewhere else. The footnotes that you'll see there lead to the better sources. You should look here first, and then of course apply all of the criteria we're going to talk about to these sources as well. Let's look at some final hints for determining website credibility. Look for information about the author. Is this person qualified to write about the information that you're looking at? What are their credentials? Note, if there's a tilde mark in the URL, this often indicates that it's a personal page. Even if it's linked to an institution that may be credible, the information on that page is personal and may not reflect the views of that institution. Look for an about this site or organization. You want to find out whether or not this organization has the credentials to share the information that you're looking at. This brings us to objectivity. Objectivity refers to how balanced the information on the website is. For instance, if you're researching a controversial subject, does it show both the pros and the cons of the issue? If not, you may be looking at a biased website. Bias may be categorized by emotional language, which is language that's designed to elicit an emotional response from the reader rather than just impart information, or by omission of facts, whereby the website leaves out pertinent information that could sway the way you feel about this topic. Additionally, be wary of a sales pitch website in which the website is trying to sell you something. If it's trying to sell you something, they probably aren't going to be totally truthful in the way that they shape the information. Let's take a look at a couple of websites you might encounter objectivity issues with. To begin, any kind of blogs like Blogger or Tumblr, the Dallas Morning News opinion page, or a political page like the NRA or Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. So why are these sources not objective? Well, in the case of blogs, they're open to anyone. In the case of an editorial or opinion page, they're not usually written by scholars. And in the case of the political pages, the publisher or host of the site may have a specific political, social, or commercial, that's advertising, agenda. Next, let's talk about currency. Currency refers to when the article was written. Because information is constantly changing, it's imperative that the website has a date on it. It's important to note that not every topic needs research that's 100% current. For instance, history, literature, or historical art or figures may not necessarily need information that's 100% up to date. But if your topic has to do with science or current controversial issues, if it has to do with laws or statistics, then you want to make sure that the information provided is absolutely up to date. I want to briefly mention two websites that tend to show up a lot in student speeches, about.com and ehow.com. The verdict on about.com and ehow.com is that they are not current websites. Why not? Well, take a look at this website. Do you notice anything? There's no date. How would you possibly know if this article on an environmental issue is up to date or not? You wouldn't. As a general rule, if there's no author and there's no date, it's of no use to you. Lastly, let's take a look at relevance. Relevance means that the website you're looking at adds to your knowledge. A lot of times students are concerned with getting the number of sources that they need, but the sources aren't necessarily quality or relevant to their topic. Let's take a look at an example. If you were giving a speech over the history of soccer, would you need a book on how to play soccer? No, you wouldn't. It wouldn't be relevant to your speech. Now, it's important to note that some internet sources are okay. You should apply the criteria of credibility, objectivity, currency, and relevance. Use good judgment. So what can you use? Any source where the author's credentials are available, where a date and title are available, or scholarly sources that are peer-reviewed. What I mean by scholarly sources are journal articles, magazine articles from reputable magazines, newspaper articles from reputable newspapers, and again, not the editorials or the subscriber comments, books or ebooks. And when I say peer-reviewed, I mean that a group of experts in the same field as the author have read and evaluated the accuracy of that writing before it's published. Anytime you have an article that's scholarly and peer-reviewed, it's a good article. Simply put, when researching for a formal speech, a Google search will not cut it. What do you need to do then? You need to go to your library or use your library's website to find scholarly information. Some of you may have been to your Richland College library before. If not, to find out information about it, go to www.richlandcollege.edu/library. I want to point out a very specific resource on your Richland College Library website, and that is the Libguides. Libguides include subject guides and useful resources that have been compiled by your librarians and by your instructors. To find the Libguides, scroll down this page. Click on Speech. There are two Libguides in particular that your instructors have provided you links to: Countries and World Cultures and the Persuasive Speech. Once you're in a Libguide, read the Start Here information. Once you're done fully reading that page, click on the next tab that will take you to search terms. Then brainstorm your search terms. Click on the tab that reads search terms and follow all of the instructions on that page to come up with different search terms to research for your information. Next, you'll click on encyclopedias to find out background information. These are scholarly encyclopedias. You can find a book to broaden your knowledge. You can get more focused information from a peer-reviewed article by clicking on the tab Find Articles. You can find recent development about your topics in credible websites that are pre-approved for you to use. Lastly, avoid plagiarism by citing your sources. Click on 6, Cite Your Sources, to find information on how to cite your sources properly in MLA format. Speaking of citing your sources, let's talk a little bit about giving credit. When we say cite your sources, we actually mean 3 things. The first is written credit in your outline. This is sometimes called internal references, in-text citations, or parenthetical documentation, but it refers to any time you give credit to a source in your outline. The next is verbal credit. These are called verbal citations or oral citations, and this is when you give credit to your source out loud in the body of your speech while you're speaking. Lastly is your works cited, often called a bibliography or reference list. This is the list of the works that you use to research your speech. It goes at the end of your outline, and it's typically in an MLA or APA format. Here's an example of an MLA formatted journal article, Works Cited. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about your works cited. What is a works cited? It's a list of sources designed to enable a reader to quickly find the same information that you found while researching for your speech. What should you include in your works cited? Anything that you read or used to create your outline and or your speech. So unless you created the research or you did the survey yourself, then you must have found that information somewhere. You need to put that information in your works cited. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about MLA versus APA. When we say MLA, we're referring to the Modern Language Association style formatting. This is the preferred style for your English classes, and while APA is typically used in social sciences like communication studies, we're fine if you want to use MLA because it's what you're most familiar with in your college studies thus far. If you choose to use MLA or your instructor allows you to use MLA, make sure that you use it consistently throughout both your speech and your works cited. This is an example of works cited in MLA format. What we're going to do is take a look at 3 of the most typical MLA formatted sources so that you have an idea of what they should look like. If you choose to do APA and it's okay with your instructor, make sure you look up how to do it appropriately. Let's begin by looking at how to format a book citation. You would have the last name and then the first name, followed by the title in italics, the place that it was published, the publisher, the date of the publication, and what the medium was, so if it was print or web. Next, let's look at a journal article citation. It would be very similar. You'd have first the last name and first name of the author. The title would be in quotation marks, and the journal is what would be italicized. You would have the volume, or if there were issue numbers, that would be included. You'd have the date of publication, the pages that it was found on, the name of the database that you found the journal article from, the medium of publication, which would be a web if it was an online journal, and the date that you accessed it. Last, let's look at a website. You would have, again, the last name and first name of the author, the title in italics, then you would have the publishing information if that was available and the publication date, and then the title of the website italicized, the medium that you received it from, which would obviously be the web, and the date that you accessed it. As a general rule for creating your works cited, If you can't find some of the information, such as an author or a website title, you would typically leave it out. But again, if you're using credible sources, you should be able to find this information. For more help with your works cited entries, go to the Libguide and look at the number 6 tab for Cite Your Sources. Thank you so much for your attention while watching this tutorial. We hope that it's been helpful to you. Please proceed to taking your post test. Thanks again.